Zombie takeout? What's a zombie takeout?
What's up? Welcome to episode 201 of Zombie Takeout,
Zombie takeout.
the movie and cult movie podcast. I'm Uncle John.
And I'm Scotto.
And before we get to this week's movie, got a little bit of news. This first story, of course, we have to talk about.
Whatever could it be?
Finally,
Uncle John?
something concrete. From The Hollywood Reporter, Star Wars Episode 7 cast revealed. John Boyega, Daisy Ridley, Adam Driver, Oscar Isaac, Andy Serkis, Domhnall Gleeson, and Max von Sydow will join the original stars of the saga, Harrison Ford, Carrie Fisher, Mark Hamill, Anthony Daniels, Peter Mayhew, and Kenny Baker, in Star Wars Episode 7, the much-anticipated relaunch of the George Lucas sci-fi franchise now owned by Disney. The announcement was made Tuesday by Disney and Lucasfilms on the official Star Wars website. The casting announcement caps off a month of... I don't really need to continue reading this.
Everybody's heard this by now.
But, okay, we've got John Boyega, Andy Serkis, Max von Sydow. I'm very happy. I don't know who the rest are. I don't really care.
I wouldn't have minded some John McGinley.
Well, he's good, but after this movie... I actually do like him in a lot of other stuff, but... Also, we're getting 3PO, Chewie, and R2 back. Which
Of course.
we hadn't heard, at least I hadn't heard before.
Any word on Billy D?
I don't know. I haven't heard anything. That'd be interesting.
Hey, come on.
Yeah, he's got to be in there just to complete the set, I suppose.
I mean, it was... I don't know. One could accuse Lucas of tokenism.
Yes.
I mean, because he was called out for not having
Yeah.
a single
African
black guy in
American.
the cast, except for, of course, the one, doing a voiceover.
And they're now being called out because of the lack of women. We have
Yes.
Daisy Ridley and Carrie Fisher, and that's all we've heard.
Yeah. But, I mean, you could have women in, other
Oh
small
yeah, smaller
roles,
roles, yeah, of course. And Carrie Fisher, I think, was the only main female character, or Leia was the only main female character in the original trilogy.
And how many female characters were in the prequels? It's kind
Yeah.
of silly to, there was only...
Padme
One-
and her double, and that was about it that I recall.
Right, and that wasn't even a major character. I thought it was
And I mean,
just...
that's if you might as well count Mon Mothma in the original trilogy if you're going there.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, they're not really known for female characters.
No.
But again, very excited to see Andy Serkis, hopefully in person, not just doing a mocap thing for once.
Oh, I have a feeling he is just going to be doing a mocap thing.
Probably. John Boyega, I was saying I would love to see him in the movies. A little concerned about what it'll do to his career, but looking forward to seeing it. And Max von Sydow. Now, of course, they have to have talk about Token, they have to have the Token old guy. They had, Alec Guinness and Christopher Lee.
But honestly, the old guys have been awesome in all of these
they've
Star
made
Wars
some great
movies.
choices because they've had Guinness and Lee.
Christopher Lee, Peter Cushing,
Yeah, I didn't think about Cushing. Yeah,
fantastic performances.
absolutely.
I mean, it was a shame they killed Tarkin off in the first one,
Yeah,
and they couldn't have brought him back and
With the other
had him
movies, yeah.
as a better character. But of course, he had the whole hubris thing that
Right.
killed him.
it
Which
was kind of part of the story.
Right, which is a pretty damn interesting way to kill a villain off.
Right. Now the question is Sydow going to be playing Von Sydow going to be playing Sith or Jedi? Because I don't
He's-
really know if he does good guys.
He's got to be a bad guy.
Yeah, I don't know that he plays non-villains, so he's going to be Sith because the Empire is probably not going to be a thing. They've thrown out the expanded universe, or at least they said they're not pulling from the expanded universe anymore. So I don't know if there will be pockets of Imperials in these movies. There will be, of course, be Sith, and that's probably what he's going to be playing. He's the master.
So they're not bringing Thrawn in or anything like that.
I think they've flat out said Thrawn will not be in the movies because that's what everybody was looking for.
Yeah.
I mean, there was even speculation. In fact, there was a Photoshop of Benedict Cumberbatch as Thrawn.
Interesting choice.
He would be brilliant in the role if he was blue, you know.
I'd been thinking Kevin Spacey, but
Character-wise, absolutely, he doesn't quite look the part.
oh, come on, you make him up in blue and stuff. It doesn't really matter.
Yeah, I mean, Cumberbatch isn't exactly how I pictured him either. I always kind of pictured Thrawn kind of big and not quite that young looking.
Or really, you get Park,
Well, yeah, Ray Park, obviously.
and
And
then
have
you,
Spacey do the voice, yeah.
yeah.
That would be the ideal Thrawn, yeah.
If Lucas were directing this, that's exactly what he would do.
All right, next story, a little less interesting from Cinema Blend. Sharknado 3 coming to Sci-Fi in 2015
How is
because
that less
sharks.
interesting?
Well, fair enough. Sci-Fi has already given the green light to the presumably ludicrous sequel Sharknado 3, a full 3 months before Sharknado 2 comes around and barely attracts an audience despite a strong Twitter presence. Via a press release, Sci-Fi and the Asylum wore their gimmicky intentions on their sleeves by making it clear the whole point of the sequel is to take the action to a different city, which is no surprise since the only thing that Sharknado 2 is accomplishing is moving its characters from LA to New York, and then destroying New York through terrible CGI. I hope you
Oh,
like
please tell
mysteries.
me.
I hope you like mysteries because they're not releasing where Sharknado will take place just yet. I'm putting money on Vegas.
Yeah, it's got to be something landlocked. I'm hoping for Kansas.
Well, I'm thinking it's gonna be a major city. And Atlanta is a little too close to New York. They're gonna go Midwest, and that means Chicago or Vegas. Vegas fits Sci-Fi and the Asylum more.
You don't think they'll do like, London or something?
I see them keeping it in the U.S. and I see them really going absurd, and that's Vegas.
Yeah. Although Kansas is pretty absurd
Oh
if you
yeah,
think about it. The shark.
it's absurd in concept, but think of everything they can play with in Vegas in terms of
True.
like the sets. You have that giant roller coaster on top of the casino, and
The fountain,
yeah, all the
everything.
shit flying around. What do they have in Kansas aside from water towers that can end up being picked up by and cows?
But that's the thing, they'll be wondering where the sharks are even coming from.
Well, yeah, but you've done the same thing in Vegas, unless that's how they do it. It's some kind of this proves Vegas again. Chicago's a possibility, but I see it Vegas. It's some kind of aquarium exhibit with sharks when the twister hits and the sharks get picked up in it. That's how they explain the Sharknado in Vegas.
Well, we will just have to wait and see, won't we?
And only till next year. That's another thing to look forward to next year, in addition to Star Wars and hopefully Modern Ocean and all the other stuff.
Well, I think we can now admit that the whole old TV rating system
Mhm.
is pretty much out the window.
Possibly, yeah. I think
mean,
a lot of people, they say that Sharknado didn't get the numbers that they were hoping. I think a lot of people probably watched it not so legally.
but in the end, who gives a fuck?
Oh, they watched it.
Yeah, and it was about people talking about it.
Exactly, and they definitely got that.
I mean, Sci-Fi got such attention for having it on.
Mhm.
I mean, there were probably so many people that didn't even know
The
where
Sci-Fi
it was on their dial, so to
Right.
speak,
Mhm.
and that at least introduced the channel number to their
Right.
consciousness.
Which is probably why they went with 2 sequels, because
Of course,
there's no such thing as bad publicity, and
right.
Sharknado will get them publicity regardless if who watches it.
And
And
this is Asylum. There's only one kind of publicity
exactly
that you can get from
right,
that.
and it's Asylum, which means they make it dirt cheap as possible.
Right.
So it's not like it's going to cost them a lot.
It's a cheaper vacation than an Adam Sandler movie.
Exactly. And moving on to this week's movie, which is from 1995, Highlander II, the Renegade version. Yeah. Of course, that brings us to the impromptu plot summary, sponsored by Good Intentions. Sometimes they're just not enough.
And also brought to you by Retconning. Have an act of nature you'd like to redescribe? Make them aliens. If that doesn't go over, make them time travelers. You can do it all with Retconning.
I really wonder where they would have gone next if they, had another movie to do.
What made him think, though? He's clearing up the time traveler thing, or the alien thing
Alien
with the
thing with
first one.
time travelers, yeah.
And then to make some time travel.
Well,
Like, how does that make it better?
we should do the plot summary first before we get in.
All right, the plot summary. You know that movie we did last episode? Just forget about it.
Yeah.
Because being immortal is no longer an act of nature. Why does the sun come up, or the stars? Why are the stars in the sky? They, in this version, they are time travelers from an ancient time, long ago.
With some advanced technology.
Yes, with advanced technology, and they have a rebellion against a bad guy who.
Please let me say it. General Katana. A sword movie, and the bad guy is General Katana.
Yeah. Anyway, so they are sentenced rather than death. They are sentenced to exile in the future.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there's a scene in this movie where the female lead, Virginia Madsen, has to explain the rules.
Yeah.
And it's in the character where she's confused by it.
Right.
But you can tell the actress herself
Yeah.
is just like,
That was a rare moment of self-awareness in the film, I think.
what the fuck? So anyway, we'll continue with this. They are sent into the future. The first movie happens, like, with the exception of now that he has the prize, and we pick up where he has been turned into Russell Don Corleone McLeod, where he speaks in his voice like this.
I didn't quite put that together when you mentioned that for a title. Yeah, okay.
He's gonna make you an offer you can't refuse. He's gonna put a big shield around the planet.
Voice like that, except bear in mind that Christopher Lambert is absolutely nowhere near the actor that Brando was.
I thought you were gonna say that I am.
Or either way.
Yeah, maybe that's why I like watching Chris Lambert. He makes me feel like a good actor. I need that.
Yeah.
Anyway, so yeah, the in the 1990s, the hole in the ozone layer was the big thing, and it became so bad that some people got solar radiation poisoning and died, including, of course, the actress that is standing in for the love interest from the last one. Yeah. This is like the worst case of you couldn't get the same actress back for one reason or another, so we put some makeup on and then a mask on top of her.
Bandage over the eyes.
Yes. But yes, this is in a flashback at a later point in the movie that they reveal this, so I'm going out of order.
That's about 70% of the movie, flashbacks.
But anyway, he decides the big thing is to save the planet Earth from solar radiation poisoning is to build a giant shield around the planet. How he does this, we're not going to debate the science of this, are we?
No.
Please tell me you're not going to nitpick the fucking harebrained scheme of building a large shield around the fucking planet Earth.
Because they didn't explain anything about the science. They didn't even try.
No, they didn't.
Which I appreciate.
There were some satellites around the world. There were some energy chambers around the world. They emitted something into the air that bounced back and forth off a satellite.
Some sort of electromagnetic energy.
And it created a shield over the planet that pretty much made our climate, like England or something like that. Yeah, the most absurd part, of course, is when...
It increased the temperature, the humidity, and it also made it constant night.
When Ramirez comes back to life, and don't ask me how, he's marveling at the shittiness of it all, and he's from Scotland.
Right.
But anyway.
Well, or originally Egypt, but
that's true. Or wherever the fuck he was supposed to be from.
Spain, whatever.
So anyway, now we're really back. We're at the beginning of the movie where he's the old man, and he's kind of a scourge. He's kind of treated like, some people respect him because they believe he saved the planet. Some people just believe he's fucked the planet over. But a business has taken advantage of this shield because, as it turns out, The air above the shield is just fine, has been for years, and it's just not profitable to take the shield down.
The ozone layer has grown back, basically.
Yes. So he
Which is entirely possible if you don't shield the Earth, but I said I wouldn't nitpick science.
what a fantastic message to the movie, by the way. Don't meddle with the environment. The Earth will just fix itself.
Mhm.
But anyway, meanwhile, back in the past, the ancient past, they are watching the future somehow.
Mm.
They're able to see what's going on in the future. Duh.
Yep. On these big screens in the ancient past.
And they send forth a two henchmen goons, one that sounds exactly like Salacious Crumb.
Mm.
They send them into the future. Remember, this was a punishment that these other guys suffered, that to be sent into the future. It almost, sounded like a one-way ticket to kill him. And because they sent more immortals in, and when he experiences the quickening, he becomes young again, and he immediately has to fuck Virginia Madsen. And
Yeah.
I wish that was a joke.
Oh, no.
I wish I was just, that just sounds like something I would say as a throwaway.
Right.
He becomes young, he immediately has to fuck Virginia Madsen.
No, it happens.
No, that is how it literally happens in the movie. He has this sword fight with two guys. They're on Back to the Future hoverboards, which this is after. So
and those were actually repurposed for Back to the Future. One of the Back to the Future movies.
Yeah. Like Back to the Future was before this.
No, but it was those hoverboards were repainted for one of the sequels.
Yeah.
So the actual prop was used in both movies.
So they swiped the prop from Back to the Future too.
Yeah.
So yes, he has the sword fight with the two guys, finishes off the two guys, has the quickening, gets younger, and he just walks over to Virginia Madsen and fucks her right there in the alley.
Mhm.
That is how it went down.
Mhm.
Now that you've wrapped your head around that, of course the bad guy, henchman, Michael Ironside, has to, or I should just say, not Clancy Brown.
Well, I got to give Ironside his props. He's done some great work. He was kind of wasted in this movie, as was everybody.
Right. He goes into the future himself, and he teams up with the business for a bit. They reenact a lot of the scenes from the first movie,
including the church scene almost exactly.
Yeah, exactly. And
in fact, when you said throw out the first movie, I was going to say throw out all the first movie except for the church scene.
Well, he, instead of riding in the car with the old lady, he drives the train.
Right.
And then they do the church seat. So, yeah. So anyway, yes, I would say hilarity ensues.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, a lot of pain, really, honestly.
Now, there was one good part. Well, there were a couple of good parts of the movie, but I think the best part, the opera scene right at the beginning. You know, you had a great performance of Wagner right at the top, right before anything bad happened.
I mean, it was an interesting idea to start it. I just didn't think it was executed well. I mean, I think I kind of liked it because of the contrast of the first one,
right,
where it's the wrestling match and he's all alone there. And then from there on,
there were some good parts, I will say. The Shakespeare scene I liked when Connery came back.
I don't know.
I thought it was funny. It was amusing.
I'm on the cusp, whether what I thought of that scene. But it is one of the most interesting scenes in the movie, actually.
And Mr. Anti-Montage, the montage where he buys the suit, I liked. All of the Connery Scotland stuff I dug.
But there was only like 3 scenes of Sean Connery in this.
Well, yeah. And 2 of them where he was alone, or at least not with Lambert, I liked. when he was buying the suit and when he was resurrected on stage during a performance of Hamlet.
I mean, the reason why I was kind of iffy about that is just a lot of the tone of this movie is just really shitty.
Oh yeah, yeah. And they
I
went for broad comedy in 2 scenes, and I enjoyed it.
and so like what I don't know. I'm trying to wrap my head around what he was trying to say in that scene, you know?
They weren't trying to say anything. It was just a cute, funny way to bring Ramirez back.
Maybe it's because after seeing the first one where everything had,
Hmm.
a purpose to it.
Right? Not
I
this time.
I have a feeling there was an intent there. What it was though, it got lost.
Okay, if you really want to stretch it, it's the last Uric scene.
Yes.
He's having the conversation with the skull, talking about, this friend who had passed away.
Right.
And you're having Ramirez, the friend, come back in the middle of the scene of Hamlet eulogizing his friend.
All right.
If you really want to stretch it and demand a meaning.
No, I'll buy that. And I think that's good. I just thought he was may have been putting the theater down or something, you
No,
know?
no, no. Also, I think overall it looked better than the first movie. There were some dicey effects, mostly the ancient past stuff, but overall it looked better.
There were a lot fewer effects.
Yeah.
But there were some really shitty
Oh yeah,
effects too.
particularly the scenes that took place a long time ago on Zeist.
The shield,
Well,
the airplane.
the shield didn't look too bad. The plane was hideous. You're right.
Like what was that plane in anyway? Like were they traveling in the 1940s?
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing.
It's a fucking propeller plane. I don't remember that at all from the original theater release actually.
I haven't. It's been too long. It's been like 15 years since I've seen the theatrical version.
We should lay this on the listeners right now about because we had it scheduled
Oh
originally.
yeah, yeah. Well, there's a slight change in plans next week. We were gonna review the theatrical version. We realized there isn't enough of a difference. It's really just gonna be this episode with a slight variation all over again.
Yeah.
So what's the point of that? Final thing I did like the fight choreography. It was a lot better than the first movie. They actually brought someone in, I think,
But they were dull fights.
but they were better choreographed than the first one.
Yes, they were better choreographed, but as far as entertaining go,
No, no, no. They weren't entertaining at all.
I
Very
mean, it was a
technical.
snooze fest.
Incidentally, from what I've read, the reason this movie exists is because Lambert and Connery wanted to work together again. They got
Really?
along really well, and they really enjoyed working together, so they convinced Mulcahy to do a sequel.
This wasn't just a paycheck grab.
Apparently not. They just wanted to work together again.
No shit. I thought that they just had this had gotten so much heat, on the video circuit and cable circuit, because I mean, they did play this on cable and video, and rentals for this were fucking
I
astronomical.
saw it on cable, actually.
Right. For the first one, that is. I mean,
Oh yeah, well yeah, I didn't see the first one in the theater either. I probably saw it on cable, but this one I saw on TV for the first time. It was the theatrical version.
I just assumed that there was so much heat for that they said why not make a sequel.
Mm.
But the problem is the tone is entirely different.
Mhm.
Like what made the first movie good is just completely taken out of this. And then you're still left with all the flaws from the first movie.
Yeah, this was an issue of the bonding company, the insurance company, effectively taking over the movie from Mulcahy. They demanded creative control.
Wow.
Yeah, and so it was made by a corporation. In fact, Mulcahy was so frustrated by being locked out that he tried to do the Alan Smithy thing. However, a section of his contract forbade him from publicly attacking the film before it was released. Producers said that if he'd had the credit changed, it would have been considered an attack and he would have been sued.
Wow.
So he had very little to do with it, yeah. According to the documentary Highlander II Seduced by Argentina, the film's apparent poor performance is partially a result of the bonding company's interference with the work of Russell Mulcahy, as well as economic problems within Argentina itself, the location where it was filmed. Mulcahy reportedly hated the film so much that he walked out of the film's world premiere after 15 minutes. For similar reasons, Lambert threatened to walk out of the project when it was nearing fruition. However, due to contract obligations, he did not.
Wow.
They tried to get Clancy Brown back. He declined.
they at least couldn't get him back.
Yeah.
Yeah, you see Kurgan wearing the mask briefly in the earlier scenes, but that's about it.
Now, when they go to a long time ago, formerly the planet Zeist, it's a desert shot, and it's done as a nice transition from the Wagner opera, where you see this one actor walking up stage and kind of swirling a coat around, and then it turns into these desert dwellers. They did a nice job with that, and then they cut to a wide matte shot of a ship in the desert. And when it was Zeist, that made sense. When it's a long time ago, why is this ship hanging out in the middle of a desert? They could fly, apparently, and do metal work a long time ago, and yet it's just this ship they're hanging out in.
So yeah, the differences between this and the theatrical release, I, and I think a lot of the titles were still in it.
Hmm.
But yeah, they
They just
why?
changed on the planet Zeist to a very long time ago, and a couple of voiceovers.
Yeah, something about the unholy power of being immortal.
Hmm.
Like they made them special
Yeah.
even for a long time ago, and that they had time traveling
Right.
capabilities.
And there was one of Ironside's lines that you could tell originally the camera was on him, and he said they were sent to Earth, or we're sending you to Earth. That was it. We're sending you to Earth when he's talking to the henchman.
Yeah.
And it was so obvious that they just looped the shot of the henchman and had a voiceover that I don't think was Ironside. I think it was a voice actor saying, we're sending you to the
The
future.
future.
Because there was another bit at the end. They reiterate one of Connery's lines, "The full measure of a life." It doesn't sound like Connery at the end, and there is someone in the credits who's listed as voices. I think they had somebody impersonate Connery, impersonate Ironside for that one voiceover, and probably did that weird voiceover that announced the sentence and kind of talked for the priests, even though they could talk for themselves individually.
Yeah.
There was this weird disembodied voice. I don't know if that was done for the Renegade or if that was in the original. I don't recall.
But really, as far as I know, that's it. The only things I'm hazy about, I don't remember the original having the really weird airplane,
Hmm.
and I seem to remember Sean Connery spinning away with the blade
Okay.
in the theatrical
Yeah.
release. Like he holds onto the blade and kind of spins away with a drill.
And sacrificing himself in the process, which they kind of didn't really get into in the Renegade.
It was a really bad effect.
Well,
And they were very
probably
smart for
why
taking it out.
they took it out. Yeah.
It really sucked.
Uh-huh.
It was absurd that he was there in the first place anyway.
Hmm.
As good as it was to have him back,
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's absurd that they even made this movie.
that's true. That's true.
And whatever, I thought of the first one, it ended there very nicely,
Yeah,
very completely.
beginning, middle, and end.
Right.
And the other, key thing that was really good about the first movie was that they didn't explain shit to you.
Right.
That they really had the audience figuring things out for themselves.
Mm.
In this one, they begin with the backstory.
Of
Like
yeah.
even before this movie's begun,
Mhm.
it has like trampled over the spirit of the original
Right.
by giving you the exposition word, on the screen, placards.
And okay, it's been a couple weeks, but I think I remember Ramirez saying nobody knows why they're immortal.
Right.
He
It was
actually
just
said
a
that.
thing that happened.
Yeah.
And this version, they kind of bring that back.
Only by explaining that they don't really remember
Yeah, well, that's insane.
until, I guess Connor was on his deathbed or something, and Ramirez, not on his deathbed, he's at the opera, but he's apparently very close to death, and
Yeah,
Ramirez comes back to him and reminds him of a long time ago,
a long time ago.
of their origin, suggesting that Ramirez knew, or maybe after he died he learned, I don't know.
So let's see. We have terrible general futuristic armor.
Hmm.
Uh, and the two henchmen that he sent back or sent forward into the future
Hmm.
or sent to Earth or whatever were probably some of the worst villains I've seen on screen in a long time.
Yeah, reminded me of the silent guy in Thunderdome with the kids.
Oh, I think they're even worse. I think they were like Mighty Morphin Power Ranger villains.
Yeah, yeah, they did. Actually, they are like the villains from the old Japanese live action superhero
Yeah.
things. They
Oh,
were those villains.
yeah. And a lot of this movie is just toned down.
Hmm.
Like the first one, everything was about being bombastic. But I mean, and we had a couple scenes of ridiculous explosions. But even the quickenings, really, in this were quite toned down from the first
Well,
one.
yeah, okay, the first quickening. I have an issue with that. Because, okay, he takes the head, you see the lightning crawling toward him,
Yeah.
or the electricity. It gets to him, he screams, it overtakes him, and then, like, 2 seconds later, a bunch of windows blow out. He already got the quickening. Why are the
Yeah.
windows blowing out?
And the final quickening in this is probably the most anticlimactic
Yeah.
quickening in all of the movies.
Mhm.
Like it was literally over in 2 seconds.
The animation in the first movie for the final quickening was more satisfying, as much as I
Right.
didn't like it.
You took a brain off for that one.
Yeah, yeah. And that was more satisfying.
But right, there it was climactic. It was
Yeah.
this is the end. He just killed the big bad
Right.
guy.
At least there was something.
But this it was just eh. It was like it reminded me of like the Craig Ferguson joke when he would just have like the little title and then like the gay sparks or whatever,
Right.
like just it was just a little puff.
I'm actually
And
surprised
done.
you aren't more pissed off about it because if you think about it, it kind of was fuck you, Mr. Clown.
In a way, yeah. In a way that this whole movie was that.
Yeah. Now, okay, there was also some funny math, fuzzy math.
Let's see that.
When she first, tries to talk to him about the shield, when she won't get out of the car, and he says that was 40 years ago, but the shield's only been up for 25.
Hey, you're right.
40 years ago would have been before the first movie happened, from the time of that scene in 2024.
40 years is a yeah, they're talking from 40 years the first movie
Well,
to
roughly,
then.
but she was talking about the shield, and when they built the shield,
Right.
that was not 40 years ago.
You're right.
That was maybe 30 years from the time the movie takes place. Also, the Immortals only used swords, but the Assassins had guns.
They did.
But when they got up into close quarters with Connor, they used a sword, not the gun. Why not just put the gun to his head? Be done with it. It's fucking Scott Evil all over again. He had the gun.
Ah.
And there is one thing I think we'll disagree on.
What?
The whole shield thing, I think in another movie with better writing is an interesting idea.
Of course.
Okay, we're not going to disagree.
It is kind of in this movie. It's just insane.
Oh yeah, yeah, it doesn't fit at all. Give it its own movie, and with the debate about whether the environment's better, and do we take down the shield and the corporation and that whole thing. That's a movie I would be very interested in. It doesn't fit in a Highlander movie at all.
But honestly, it was done in a film before this.
Okay.
Spaceballs.
Oh God, you're right.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
Never thought about that.
Uh-huh.
Oh man.
This
Alrighty
movie
then.
needed Dark Helmet to come
Yeah.
along
Yeah.
and steal all the oxygen. So these motherfuckers would have all just died. Except
Yeah.
for the immortal people, I guess. But then,
And how did they? Oh, I get how they survived the explosions because you got to take the head, but how did Connor's clothing survive 2 explosions? And I have in my notes why was Ramirez resurrected? Because there's no explanation of that. He yells Ramirez during the quickening.
he
Suddenly,
heals Ramirez during a quickening,
then
and it brings him
Ramirez is
back to life. That's all that needed to happen.
Yeah. I think the whole long time ago storyline made more sense when they were aliens. As much as it sucked when they were aliens, it fit better.
None of it makes sense.
There was more internal logic when they were supposedly alien stuff.
None of it makes sense. I don't understand how making them time travelers is supposed to fix the alien
No.
debacle.
No.
because it just doesn't. Let's see. What else do I have here? Oh, the last stop has to be the worst one-liner
Hmm.
in movie history.
Yeah.
I mean, the fact that he says it into the camera like that
Mhm.
too,
Yeah.
like
Well, that I think that was just Ironside chewing some scenery.
he walks out of the train and then last stop into the camera.
He was given a horrible line. He had fun with it. Did you notice how they had to shoe in "It's a Kind of Magic"? Shoehorn in, I mean.
And
There was
what?
one Queen song on the soundtrack that was on a jukebox, but they had to shoehorn in "It's a Kind of Magic."
And I thought you were talking about the line.
Yeah, no, I mean the line while the
Okay,
song was playing.
yeah. And about the soundtrack, man, what a downgrade.
Mhm.
Man, what a downgrade from the first one.
Although I did post on our social networks, all three of them. I don't know which is worse or which is weirder, that I kind of liked the song over the closing credits, or that I feel guilty about liking the song because it's in Highlander 2.
All right, so I did see that at work earlier today.
It's a very cheesy, very 80s Lou Gramm song, but I kind of liked it.
I was trying to remember the song at the end of the movie, and it's probably because I mean, it was like 2 a.m.
Oh,
yesterday. I had to fucking go to bed. I could see a feeling of relief that the movie was finally done.
that could be it.
Um, yeah.
It was nostalgic for me. It was very 80s, so maybe that's it. Although the movie
I
was
always liked Lou
90.
Gramm
Yeah.
back in the day. I mean, I don't think I'd listen to him now, but you know.
I don't remember the last time I've listened to him or Foreigner, aside from the end of this movie. And I listened to the song again. I do like it, but I still feel guilty about liking it just because of the connection to this movie.
Last time I listened to Foreigner, they were playing at the end of a minor league hockey game in Milwaukee.
Ah.
It was a free show.
Now, there is one thing that would have made this movie a lot better.
One thing?
I think it would have fixed everything.
What?
If the scene where they got shot up in the car was the end.
Oh, wow.
If they just get shot up in the car and it cuts the credits and that's the movie.
Now that should have been the Renegade version.
Yeah,
And you just play the Who Wants to Live Forever thing and the credits start rolling.
perfect.
Damn. Yeah,
Would
that
have
would have been
fixed the
good.
movie.
I think the only thing that would have fixed this would be some lighter fluid to match.
Time travel to stop it from happening.
Yeah.
Okay, just one minor little, and I said I wasn't going to nitpick, and this isn't really a nitpick of science, but logic more than anything. Okay, the access ladder up to the shield control.
Yeah.
There was all sorts of electricity arcing around it. Why are they going to put an access ladder through that?
And why would you put something that couldn't never be taken down?
Well, yeah, because they needed some device to get Connor to do something that only an immortal can do. Plain and simple.
Here's my nitpick. When you know somebody that for a while and they come back to you and they're 40 years younger, how do you not think it's odd? Or more than just working out or had a facelift?
This is Alan, the other guy who helped, who made the
Yes.
shield. Yeah, he shows up in
Yes.
his office 40 years younger, not having aged a day since they made the shield. And yeah, there was nothing said about it.
Right. Or well, he says, did you work out?
Mhm.
Did you get a facelift? He
Mhm.
looks 40 years younger.
Yeah. To be more exact, he looks about 6 years older than he looked in the first movie because
Right.
that was the time frame.
Exactly. But he was, Don Corleone McLeod earlier
Right.
when he last saw him.
Well, did he see him, or had they seen each other in
I
recent?
thought they saw each other in the opera.
Oh, that's right, they did. That's who he waved to. I
Yeah.
didn't pick up on that.
Yeah.
So yeah, that really should have been a bigger
Oh,
conversation.
what the fuck? What happened here? Wait,
Yeah,
what is going on?
right.
Oh, did you work out? What? This is a scientist asking this question? Did you get a facelift? The facelift made his voice deeper.
Or fixed whatever was wrong with his throat that was causing his voice to do that.
Right. But here is I think my absolute favorite part of this movie,
Hmm?
and that is John C. McGinley.
I'm normally a fan, particularly of his work on Scrubs.
He was terrible in this.
Yeah,
I'll say that, but he was hilarious.
yeah, I guess. Yeah, he was kind of the smarmy businessman, and he plays the role well.
He's doing Jim Carrey before Jim Carrey, really.
Yeah, yeah. Because
I
this was originally 91. I said 95 because that's when the Renegade version came out, but the original theatrical was 91.
like Jim Carrey in 1991. I mean,
Villain in Living Color, wasn't
he did an uncredited, the movie in High Strung.
he? Uh-huh.
Oh yeah, I guess he was doing Living Color then, or was he even?
Was that before In Living Color? Because I thought In Living Color was like 80s. Maybe it was early 90s.
Yeah, it's weird they don't have Living Color on IMDb for some reason.
In Living Color.
They don't have In Living Color.
Oh, wow. That's surprising.
Yet they have Duck Factory.
Wow.
And if you're out there and you remember Duck Factory too, please post
You're as old
because
as we are.
yeah, and even people our age, how many people actually remember Duck Factory?
True, true. All right, well, I'm done with my notes.
I believe I am done with
We're
mine
talking about
as well.
Duck Factory. We're pretty much done with our notes.
Oh, I have a retraction to make from last episode.
Okay.
I made a terrible mistake. The climactic duel, the Silver Cup,
Mm-hmm.
is not Jersey.
Oh.
That was Queens. All these years, I
okay.
thought that was Jersey
Hmm.
because, I mean, if you've been on the Turnpike, well, you see the beginning of The Sopranos where Tony Soprano's driving up the Turnpike. I'd always assumed it was one of those industrial buildings that he lured him to, but they keep it in NYC, which is very unusual for people from New York because usually they bring all their shit to Jersey.
All right, so really no point to sequels and remakes. Just all subsequent Highlander films ignore Highlander 2 as if it never happened.
I think for sequels and remakes that we should be going out and finding every copy, Renegade or not, and just destroying it immediately on site.
This should be Thanksgiving too.
Yeah. Oh yeah. This.
Which actually I think was what they were referencing in Thanksgiving 3. Now that I think about it, I didn't connect it at the time.
About that. I think we mentioned that during.
Okay, I didn't connect it at the time. Not that I can recall anyway.
Well, I remember when the third one came out, that at first it was referred to as Highlander 3, but when the ad campaign seriously started, they didn't call it Highlander 3 anymore. They called it something else.
The Sorcerer or something. The Sorcerer.
Yeah. Like they were just they were trying to pretend that was the second Highlander movie.
Right.
In fact, someone may have even called it Highlander 2 at one point.
Actually, that might be why I never heard of it, because I think the Final Dimension, the last one with Lambert, I think it was called Highlander 3.
Yeah.
And I just, of course, I knew about Highlander 2, and I just figured this was the next one. I never heard about the source.
Okay, Living Color first season was 1990.
Oh, okay. So it was just before this.
Yeah.
And so it really was, he really was doing Carrie before Carrie really figured out what he was doing.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a very Ace Ventura performance.
Yeah, well before Ace Ventura, of course.
And it was the only joy this movie brought to me, was seeing him perform in that way.
Incidentally, he made his character's voice as deep as possible in an effort to sound like Orson Welles. He has since admitted that this was a bad idea.
What would be a good idea in this?
No. And it didn't seem that deep, actually.
It's like saying, I played with matches while I was on the Titanic, and that wasn't a good idea. Who gives a fuck?
Right.
The ship was sinking anyway.
On to brains?
On to brains.
There were a few things that I didn't hate. This couple of scenes with Connery were fun. So I'm going to go 1.
Honestly, I would have given this negative, but McGinley saved it, so I'm going no brains. This is honestly one of the worst films ever made, I think.
You're putting it in the zero brain pantheon. Wow, I was not willing to go there.
I had always thought that I hated this just because of the contrast between the first one and the inconsistency, but there's just
Yeah.
Mulcahy doing a somber film
Right.
just doesn't
No,
work.
doesn't do somber. He does big bombastic
Right.
80s.
And when you have the flaws that the first movie had, when you just do this insane over the top stuff, it it works then. It all comes together and
Yeah.
people are having fun. But when you just have Ironsides doing these crazy things on his own, and not many people even reacting all that much to him,
Oh.
well, this is really what sums up this movie. It takes over an hour and a half for them to tell you, and get ready for this, the sky is blue.
Yeah. It really is fuck you, Mr. Clown.
I again, that sounds like a joke that it takes them over an hour and a half to establish the sky is blue. But that is how this movie goes.
Yeah.
It's like an hour 37 in. The sky is blue.
Or
Yeah.
actually, it's not the sky is blue. It's there are stars up in the sky. Because it was
Well, no.
nighttime when he took the shield down.
It was all about having a blue sky and seeing a blue sky
Yes,
again.
but you didn't actually see the blue. You saw stars.
And couple that with the shitty message of just, it'll fix itself. Why do anything?
Yeah.
It's better to have not tried at all than to have tried and failed. Couple all of those great messages in, but maybe that was just a metaphor for the fucking movie. Who knows?
Yeah. That was Mulcahy subtly slipping something in to show his true feelings about it, I guess.
Maybe. But yeah, this belongs there.
Wow. All right, what have you learned?
Just don't. Actually, you need to heed your own advice, and that there can be only one.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I learned that you really can't polish a turd.
Yes, that's exactly what the Renegade version was, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. That's exactly what Mulcahy was trying to do.
It was pouring some shinola on the shit.
And until next week, when we'll be reviewing Reform School Girls, we're skipping over the theatrical version.
There's
Why
no
bother?
point. Yeah. Why do this to ourselves?
Exactly. The titles I had in mind for next week, I had 3 titles in mind. Why do we have to suffer? Please make it stop. And I've actually, there was a third I can't recall at this time.
The Suckening.
Oh, the Suckening, yes. Yeah. Actually, no, there was a third for that one. I'm forgetting. Along similar lines of, please not again.
Yeah.
But we've decided not again. So until next time, go to zombietakeout.com, check out the album art, the episode description, of course, and the episode itself, which you're already listening to. Links to find us on Facebook, Twitter, Google+, and YouTube. Links to subscribe via RSS and iTunes. Please leave us a rating and a review on iTunes. We'd really appreciate it. You also find the movie list, every movie we've reviewed so far, and every movie we're going to review, up until, next time, now that we're cutting one out. You also find the request form. If you've got a movie you'd like to hear us review, please leave it on the request form. And, of course, the recommendations list. This never had
a chance.
I don't know if you saw, I last night after reading the plot summary when I was putting my notes together, I said I was struck by how horrendous and almost impossibly bad it was. And that's just from the plot summary.
Oh, yeah.
This was way before I ever, watched the Renegade version. And probably 15 years after I saw the theatrical version.
The scene where Virginia Madsen is talking about the rules
Yeah.
about them becoming immortal really do sum it all up.
Absolutely. You can also email us, zombietakeout@gmail.com, or leave us a voicemail at 414-368-ZTO1, or for the alphanumerically challenged 414-368-9861. Remember that you'll always be calling from the middle of Milwaukee, and until next time, always remember, never forget, wherever you go in life, there you are.
There are some people in this world who know when to stop, and some people who don't.
check your I guess the recording and I'll
Okay. Oops.
Uh-oh.
Nothing. I was playing with my back scratcher like it was a sword, and I knocked something over.
That's what you get for watching these movies.
Mm-hmm.